Look, Putin, from everything I see, has no respect for this person.
Well, that's because he'd rather have a puppet as president of the United States.
No puppet.
And it's pretty clear.
You're the puppet.
It's pretty clear you won't admit that the Russians have engaged in cyber attacks against the United States of America, that you encouraged espionage against our people, that you are willing to spout the Putin line, sign up for his wish list, break up NATO, do whatever he wants to do, and that you continue to get help from him because he has a very clear favorite in this race.
Despite the president's repeated assertion that the Russia story is just a post-election rationale for Hillary Clinton's loss, Clinton herself was very clearly talking a lot about the Trump-Russia connection back when she still thought she was going to win the election. And today, 6 months after her historic loss, she's still talking about it, telling Rebecca Traister in a profile in New York Magazine that what I was doing was working. I would have won had I not been subjected to the unprecedented attacks by Comey and the Russians, aided and abetted by the suppression of the vote, particularly in Wisconsin. And the author of that fantastic piece, Rebecca Traister, joins me now. Good to see you. It's a great piece. I read it in one single sitting. Let's start with the Russia stuff, because it strikes me like I was going back, and it was striking how much they were talking about it during the campaign and freaking out about it to the extent that I thought at the time was too much, I think.
Right. Well, I think both pre and post-election, they've gotten the rap for it being too much. So pre-election, it was like, stop focusing on this. And there was the sense that it was kind of, especially from the left, that this was like a weird conspiracy theory, and it was taking us away from what we should really be talking about. And that's, there's a real argument behind that.
Right. In terms of politically, right.
Right. Post, and why isn't she making the positive case for herself? I mean, those were the critiques that were before the election. Now, the election has happened. There's increased evidence that a lot of the stuff she was saying before the election was incredibly prescient and also probably pretty well informed. But now it's like, stop making this excuse for why you lost, right? So on both sides of the election, her talking about Russia isn't received very warmly.
So one of the things I really liked about the piece is that the Hillary Clinton that comes across in that piece is the closest in print rendering of the Hillary Clinton that I have heard about from people that work with her.
Right.
One of the things that seems clear, and tell me this, is that when we talk about like the blame game and whether she's taking responsibility, like she and the people around her feel like they were robbed. Like that's the tweet-length version of how they feel it went.
Right. But I don't think they're alone in that. Let me say that.
No, I'm not saying they're not. I'm just saying that, like, the idea that, I mean, obviously they think they made a mistake, because everyone does, but fundamentally it's like if you got jobbed by a horrible call in the end of a game or something, like, that is fundamentally how they have processed this election, how she has.
Right, and it's interesting. It's actually, Christiane Amanpour says something in my piece.
That was interesting,
where she says, why everybody's talking about Comey, why isn't Hillary Clinton allowed to talk about Comey? Because when, in fact, when she does talk about Russia or Comey, people pile on and say, oh, she's making excuses, why is she talking about this, she's not blaming herself. But the fact is, many people, many of us, many in the media are talking about this. Nate Silver has done, lengthy analysis that Hillary Clinton cites, saying this is what probably led to my loss. And the thing is, the thing about this election, and we've talked about this before, is that the win-loss in the Electoral College came down to 77,000 votes across 3 states. That means that whatever you think caused it, did.
Right.
You're right. You're right. You're right. I'm right. She's right. Everybody else is right.
It's the butterfly effect.
Right. And so, but there is this sense that, like, if she talks about the thing that she believes caused it, which is Comey and Russia, then that's invalid in a way.
But the reason that I think part of why this is so fraught, why there's such a fight over this, right, is because people do think that, like, for a debate about what the core message of the Democratic Party is, that there's 2 ways to look at it. One is that our candidate and campaign didn't talk enough about the kitchen table issues that would appeal to the voters across the greater industrial Midwest. The other is we did assemble the biggest coalition, and then we kind of got jobbed by the butterfly effect. And that matters, it seems to me, for that debate.
Right. Well, I think there's a kind of middle ground that gets lost in that debate, right? So I think it's about a messaging failure in part. So a lot of the criticism that Clinton got was that she was running these ads that, in fact, were very prescient, warning about Donald Trump. Even aside from the Russia stuff, the stuff about ICE, the deportations, that gutting ad about the child at the end of Election Day saying, can we stay? I mean, the stuff that she was predicting about a Trump administration was incredibly prescient. However, and this is a criticism that I happen to agree with, one of the criticisms of that campaign is you're not laying out a positive argument for your own administration. You're just warning us about Donald Trump. So she was simultaneously prescient and correct about Trump at the same time that she was not getting across that message of what I'm going to do. The other thing is that part of what she was going to do and what she was, and I didn't write about this in my piece, though I talked to her about it, she actually did have all kinds of policies that she was very interested in regarding the white working class. And that got some air, but bad air during the primaries. When she went to coal country, she wanted to talk about retraining coal miners, the, policies that address the opioid addiction, and that stuff wasn't getting the kind of positive airing and messaging at the end in the general election.
What do you, having spent all this time with her, what do you think she understands as her role right now?
Well, it's interesting. I think she's experimenting with a new role actually outside of politics. And that's one thing she's often criticized as the sort of consummate Democratic Party insider, right? As a first lady, as a senator, as a secretary of state, as a presidential candidate. She has talked about herself recently as an activist citizen. She's talked about herself as a member of the resistance. She's positioning herself experimentally, I think, this is my take, as somebody who's opposing from the outside. She's not the candidate. She said to me several times in many ways, I'm not running, I'm not the candidate, but she's redirecting using the C4 thing that she's set up. She's directing funds into resistance organizations.
It's a fascinating chapter, and Rebecca Traister, who is just a master at these sorts of things, Profile Hillary Clinton, is the cover story of this week's New York Magazine. Thank you so much.
Thank you.